We got the most important part. The big wank.
The big wang. So, the big wang, it's a APR GT250, which is not made for the 05 to 09 trunk. I had it custom made from APR, and then it's got AJ Hartman Fulcrum 14 end plates. This wing makes a lot of downforce. Of course, it's never been in a wind tunnel, but if you look at, you know, other factory cars, like they claim the GT500, I think makes 350 pounds of downforce at 150. This probably makes close to triple that.
Wow.
The ducting fully encapsulates the coolers, and it will suck air in and draw it in. Hop on there. Go right next to one of the rods.
Over here?
Yep.
No way.
We've had 3 people on this thing. Here was professionally stripped and painted. Electric power steering. The power steering actually works with no engine in it. All the chassis electrical systems work. There's power steering. There's no power steering. When I was in SoCal, I think this car, to a certain extent, really upset the Porsche guys because they spend $200,000 on a GT3RS, and they have essentially it's a clean car, but a shitbox 17-year-old Mustang that someone built in their garage that they can't seem to shake in their rear view mirror. And that was always a super fun thing, was having the Porsche guys that have never come to the track with you before, which over the years people kind of started to know the car, know me, and the Porsche guys that had never seen me before, never been on the track with me before, they'd come up to me and go, "What the hell did you do to this car? Like, how is my GT3RS not able to shake a 17-year-old Mustang?" The first group that went out, there was a Supra that hit the wall on the back straight of Coda doing 140. They had to cut the guy out of the car. It was terrifying.
Mark 5 or Mark 4?
Brand new, Mark 5.
Oh. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm currently en route to meet up with Andrew to check out his Shelby GT that he completely took from a stock Shelby GT3 valve and swapped the engine, stripped the interior, added aero, and turned it into a complete race car. There's nothing stock left on the car. It's completely different from your average street car build that you're used to seeing on the SS's, Hellcats, 5.0s like mine. It's completely different and it's completely insane. Now currently he's wrapping up the car because he is shipping it out to buy a ZL1 1LE. So the engine's out of the car. The second engine he was going to build, which is a Built 5.2, is out of the car. The car is completely engineless, so it's just a roller. I'm going to post a old video that shows the car when the engine had the engine in it. When the engine had the engine in it. Wow. When the car had the engine in it. But I'm going to warn you, the video quality is horrible. Wow. It's crazy.
Bet you didn't expect this when you asked me if I just had the shirt, right?
No, I was expecting you not to have a GT500 or a Mustang at all.
This actually isn't a GT500.
It's a Shelby GT, isn't it?
This is a Shelby GT. So these were limited run. They built them for 2 years, and then they came back out in like 2015. But it was based off of the GTH in 1966, and then the Shelby GT in 1967, which was, the GTH was a consumer rental car. So you could rent it through Hertz, and it was a 289 small block automatic transmission, and you could just take it out for the weekend and bring it back. People would swap the engines out of the GTH and into their own drag cars, and they'd go run them at the strip for the weekend, and they put the engine back in the rental car, and they'd take them back to the rental agency.
So it wouldn't register all the miles.
No, because they didn't have a 289 small block Ford performance engine that they could put in their drag cars. So they used to go rent the car. It was so easy to do back in the day. So you could just swap it in, take it back.
And then in 1967, they offered the Shelby GT, which was the consumer version of the GTH, and it came in stick shift, and it was the car that you could buy.
Yeah.
And for the 40th anniversary of the Shelby GT, in 2007, they came out with this Shelby GT. And they built a limited number of them to see if anybody would care, and people bought them like crazy. And it was a pre-sale modified car, which basically meant that they modified it before it was sold. So you could go to the dealership and just buy one. They typically had them sitting on the showroom floor like they have Shelby GT500s and GT350s today.
Yeah.
They did it for 07 and 08. 07 was either white or black car with silver stripes. 08 was either blue or orange with silver stripes. So that's how you can tell the years. But this car is, the only thing really stock left on this car is the body itself, the brake booster, the brake lines, and the axle housing, and that's about it. Everything is bulkheaded. All the electrical connectors are bulkheaded. There's not one wire that runs through to the inside of the car that's not a bulkhead connector, in exception of the engine harness, because the engine harness, that just came the way it was from AEM. But this large connector here, this loom, this big loom, that's the only thing that's that goes to the inside of the car that doesn't have a round bulkhead. So this is the chassis management for the electrical. That's the bulkhead connector in here for all the wiring that goes to the inside of the car. And the factory wiring in this car, including the fuse block, is about 30 pounds. I weighed the custom chassis loom that I built, plus the PDM unit, and it weighs about 7 pounds. It's all mil-spec wiring. The same wiring that I built this harness out of is the same wiring that they use in Blackhawks, that they use in fighter jets, on aircraft carriers, and it's basically a military spec wire. The transmission was built by a company back east called Hamlin Motorsport. It's a TR3650 that's original to the 3-valve Mustangs, except it's been cryo-treated, it's got upgraded synchros, it's got double pin 3/4 shift forks, 26 spline input shaft. So that's still 3-valve, even though that's not the original trans. The engine is a 5.1 liter Coyote. It's 11.5:1 to compression ratio. I kept it low because I wanted to put twin turbos on it later. Otherwise, it was going to be, we had talks to make it 13.5, 14-to-1 compression. On E85, the car makes 530 wheel. On E85, all motor. On pump gas, it makes 470. This catch tank is custom built. All the wiring in the car is custom built. RPG Racing Engines did the short block. I did all the final assembly. Livernois Motorsports did the porting on the cylinder heads. They're stock size valves, but they are, all the flow paths are optimized. Ported Cobra Jet intake manifold by Airflow Solutions in Arizona. VMP twin 69mm throttle body, so that's 4mm bigger on each side than the regular Cobra Jet. Car is insane. The big thing that everybody freaks out about when they see this car is it spins almost 10,000 RPM. Our first time on the dyno, it went very, very close to 10,000, and it stopped making power about 8,500, so we just kind of left the rev limiter at 94. But it'll do 90 miles an hour in second gear.
Yeah, you told me like at the track, if you needed to, you would rev like to 9,000, right?
Actually, the 5-inch digital dash that's in there, I have the shift lights set up, so they'll start to come on at 7,200. At 8,500, they're fully lit, and then at 92, they flash. Basically, at 85, it tells me, okay, you're done, there's no more power left, and then they flash when at 92 to tell me, okay, the rev limiter is coming. And this car is a soft limiter. So basically, when you hit the rev limiter, it barely bangs at all. It basically just kind of sticks at 9,400, and that's all it does. It's got a custom grind comp cam. It's 572 on lift. I think it's 252 on duration for the intake cam and 242 on the exhaust cam. And the exhaust cam is 530 thou lift, which is massive for Coyote cams.
Wow.
It's got pack springs. It's got manly pistons, H-Tough rods. This car is going to get boost. Yeah. I don't know when, but it's going to get a set of Berg-Warner 7670s. For 11 to 1200 for the street, and then probably about 850 for the track. Because there's no way you're going to be able to put down anything else in that. Also, Apex Race Parts just came out with an 18 by 12 wheel that'll fit in the front of the car. I need to get bigger fenders, but Right now, the car is sitting on 315 3018 square Toyo RR slicks. Well, semi-slick.
Yeah. Bigger fenders. Are you going to try to go wide body on this?
I want to go wide body. I don't have the money to go to the Shelby wide body, but I'd probably do fender flares and do like a 335 or 345 Hoosier square. Specs, right now, I did the calculator on NASA's website last night. This car specs in TT2, which on the tires that it has on it, if I run 100 and I think it was 135 pounds of ballast weight in the trunk, it'll spec TT2. If I ran the car in TT1, oh my god, there's a spider web. Hello. 345 wide Hoosiers, and I would still make class, which is kind of the direction that I want to go, because the TT1 guys, they're Vipers and Vets and very fast things, where this chassis is a big handicap. This is the car.
Oh, I bet it chops a block though. Like crazy.
It doesn't chop super hard. It chops a little bit just because it's got locked out cams, but that was one. If I could go back and there was one thing that I could redo, it would definitely be keeping variable cam.
I'm trying hard not to lean on the car.
No, you're okay. The thing makes peak horsepower for like 2,000 RPM. From 65 to 85, it makes 530 wheel. Torque, it makes peak torque at 6,200 RPM.
Wow, and what's the peak torque at?
Peak torque is 380 something foot-pounds, something like that. It's nothing spectacular.
Yeah.
A full bolt-on Coyote, Gen 1 Coyote makes more torque than this thing does. But I sacrificed for the extra RPM, and was it worth it? Maybe. I don't know. I've never driven a built NA 5.0 before.
You alright down there?
Yeah.
You shouldn't throw your tools around.
I'll live. Oh, and there's metal all over the floor. The last motor in here that ran was a 5.1. The refresh motor that was going in the car that sold yesterday was a 5.2. The 5.1 was it was a little bit more mild than the 5.2 was. The 5.1 was 11.5 to 1 compression, big cams locked out. It made 530 wheel at 8,500. The new motor would have made, at 13.5 to 1 compression with the same top end, it would have made 6 to 625 wheel at almost 10,000. The new motor was a much more high-strung engine.
That's naturally aspirated too.
Yes, that is normally aspirated. And, you know, there's nothing better than big RPM, big NA power. But at the same time, when you're trying to make that kind of horsepower naturally aspirated, I mean, it is such a high-strung engine that the reliability just they require a lot of care. And I keep coming back to race cars require a lot of care. You look at the engine in the Radical, the 1500cc long stroke. That engine is 1.5 liters, obviously, 1500 cc's, and it makes I think the new one makes almost 260 horsepower. So you break that down, that's what? 55, 60-ish horsepower per cylinder. I mean, that's a lot of horsepower. You look at like the current Toyota Corolla 4-cylinder, and it makes, I think they're 140 horsepower, 150 horsepower. That's, 20 to 30% less horsepower per cylinder. I took the orange car to the track last Sunday. The nicest part about it was the fact that all I had to do all day was check tire pressures and put gas in. Like the fact that there was no fiddling with something, checking data logs, like with a real race car like this, it's spec for NASA CC. There's always something to do when you're at the track, whether it's swapping tires, rotating tires, checking data logs, something that happened with the car. You got to figure that companies like Radical Motorsport, they designed the car to do what we do with them, is go around a racetrack. So you have a car that has very little issue. When you have a car that's built at home, even when you know what you're doing and the car's built well, there's always constant little things at the track. Not to mention you change the oil on a racing engine, every 2 track days. The car takes 12 quarts of oil at $20 a quart. So it gets extremely expensive. Not to mention all of the, you know, every couple of years what you have to do with the car. You know, fuel lines have to be changed on this car. The engine's pulled down once a year on the top end to check. The bottom end's pulled down every 2 years to check bearings and cylinder walls. Not to mention all of the stuff every track weekend that you do when you get home. You know, you do a compression check and a leak down after every track day, at least I do. You know, the car gets 100% look over. You know, it's just time for something that's a little bit more
easier,
lazy person friendly.
Orange car wasn't a fully built race car. It was more or less, well, more or less compared to this, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like kind of like a stockish interior. It wasn't really built like this one is.
Well, and that's the crazy part about it, is that car ran the same times as this car, being 12 years newer. The chassis is so much more advanced on the S550 than the S197 that it's just such an easy car to go in, drive, get used to. After 40 minutes of going around the racetrack, I mean, I felt like I had driven the car for days. And those are the kinds of cars that are super fun to have because it's less challenging to get into something. And part of being a racing driver is adapting to the car. But at the same time, having a car that is very easy to drive, it's more enjoyable. Like everything that I've read, considering I'm buying a ZL1 1LE, the difference between a Z06 and a ZL1 1LE is to turn the same lap at the same level in each car. The Camaro is that much easier to handle at the limit, as where the Z06 is a lot more drama, I guess you could say. The car itself they're both very, very fast, but the Camaro is much easier to drive. The Radicals would have been something very much harder to drive. So, I don't know, I kept going back and forth for months, and then now it's kind of like, I need to make a choice. And I've been driving my wife's car around, a 22 Mustang GT Premium, and it's really fun to drive a street car again. Because every time I drove this on the street, it's got a plate on it. I mean, it's not a street car at all, but every time I ever drove this car on the street, you know, I had to stop every 45 minutes when I was driving it in the summertime to repack the cooler for the cool shirt system with ice. Stop at a gas station, buy a couple bags of ice, pack the cooler. That's another thing, I have to drain that. So it wasn't a very enjoyable car to drive. Not to mention that the springs on this car are about 7 times stiffer than a stock one for the same year.
How much difference did it make taking out the full AC system and installing the pull shirt? Did it save you a lot or not really much around the track?
I mean, when you totally strip a car, you totally strip a car. Creature comforts are kind of, I mean, it's not something that you're looking to have when you fully strip a car. Having the cool shirt, I mean, the cool shirt itself, this cooler here, where's the connector? The cooler box itself, when it's full of water and ice, weighs maybe, 10 pounds. The shirt itself is just clothing. So if you look at the total weight versus the air conditioning system, you probably save 4 times the amount of weight compared to the full AC. I mean, with AC, it probably weighs about 60 pounds between the evaporator core, the evaporator case, the dryer, all the lines, the compressor, the condenser, versus this, it's literally just a cooler itself. Basically how it works, if you've never seen one before, this would be packed with ice. There's a pump inside here. When you switch it on, it pumps ice cold water through one tube, through your shirt, which has a bunch of veins in it, and then it pumps it back around, back to the cooler, and after about 45 minutes, there's no more ice. So it'll be hot. Not hot, but it won't be cold anymore. Right before we left SoCal, I was out at Big Willow with this car. The car turned to 132, which I guess for a 2007 Mustang isn't horrible, but there are faster cars out there. And I'm not going to say that I'm a pro driver either. There are a lot of faster drivers out there. But at Willow Springs, it was 115 degrees. I had to turn the cool shirt off until the ice started to melt a little bit in the tank because it was just so cold.
So does it just feel like someone just poured a whole bunch of water on you?
Actually, yeah.
You don't really see a high horsepower NA.
No.
especially track built in a Shelby GT.
I
No
will
way.
say that I do know some of the bigger companies, the owners of bigger companies in the industry, and they said it couldn't be done. They said I was crazy. They said it won't last. There's no way. One guy, a good friend of mine, his name's Paul Patberg. He works at a engine shop in Maryland now. But at the time when I built the 5.1, he worked for Roush Yates. And if you know Roush Yates, they build Cup engines, NASCAR engines, off-road truck engines. I mean, they build the engines in the Porsche Cup cars. And he said, I think it can be done. Let's do it. So we did. We got a game plan together. We made a parts list. We built the engine. And we had some issues with some parts early on. But once the bugs were worked out of it, it was intoxicating. I mean, people say that the GT350 is intoxicating, the RPM. It feels endless. But you figure that engine only spins 80, 200. My engine stopped making power at 85 because the Cobra Jet was a restriction, which that was supposed to replace the Cobra Jet, which is an MMR CNC composite manifold. It's all plastic. This one was air cure ceramic coated for heat. So you can see it's actually black plastic. This would have breathed a lot better on the top end. But, you know, I still spun it 9,500, 10,000 just to have that extra gear coming out of corners. Maybe don't have to make as many gear changes. A gear change is a half a second. If you can eliminate 4 gear changes, in theory, that's a 2-second drop on your lap time. This car did over 90 miles an hour in second gear. It did, I think, 58 in first gear. It is incredible. I mean, most tracks, you wouldn't even touch fourth gear. Even big tracks like Coda, I mean, you were in fourth gear, but still, I mean, you were nowhere near the red line in fourth gear. Red line in fourth gear in this car with the 5.1. At 9,500, it was 186 miles an hour. I mean, you were moving in fourth gear. Fifth gear, you'll never use ever again. The option was, when I put the 5.2 in here, was either turn it down and maybe lengthen the time in between the refreshes, or it was sell the car, get something that's a little bit less work. So, and that's what I ultimately decided to do. Little tour around the car. I know I've been working on it a little bit, getting ready to ship it out, but it's an 07 Shelby GT chassis. It had 173,000 chassis miles when I did the Coyote swap. Since the Coyote swap, it has a, I don't know, whopping 30 hours on it. But it's a Kenny Brown front grip kit in the front, AST 4150 coilovers, Cortex Watts link in the rear, 390 gears, a Bob Hanlon built Stage 2 TR3650, which for you 3-valve guys is a 3-valve transmission. It'll bolt directly up to Coyote. It has a ECU Master USA PMU 16 Autosport power distribution management system. I hand wired the whole chassis in mil spec. It has a AEM Infinity Sanolon. Obviously, the interior was professionally stripped and painted. Power steering actually works with no engine in it. All the chassis electrical systems work. There's power steering. There's no power steering. We professionally stripped the interior out of this thing and had it painted. This car with 12 quarts of oil, 8 gallons of fuel, so basically how you come off the racetrack. Tranny filled, diff filled, everything. Basically, without driver, how much does it weigh? It weighs 3179. Part of that is due to not having a cage. If this car had a full cage, which NASA didn't require, and it was out of the budget when I built the car, it's probably my biggest regret when I built this thing was not having a full cage put in it. The cars that have full cages are right around 3,300-ish pounds. With me in it, this car was 3,330 pounds. And that's same thing, 12 quarts of oil, 8 gallons of fuel, all the fluids, all of that. I mean, it's a great car. You know, it's got a lot of Watson Racing stuff. It's got their bulkhead firewall. It's got their half cage for time trials. It's got an ATL 16-gallon well cell. So you don't have to cut the chassis, which was kind of important to me at the time because it's a Shelby vehicle. I didn't want to start cutting up. You know, I could have saved some more weight by cutting the rear shelf out. I could have put a bigger fuel tank in it, either a 20 or 24 gallon. But ultimately I decided keeping the chassis whole was more important to me at the time. So.
You forgot the most important part. The big wank.
The big wang. So, the big wang, it's a APR GT250, which is not made for the 05 to 09 trunk. I had it custom made from APR, and then it's got AJ Hartman Fulcrum 14 end plates. This wing makes a lot of downforce. Of course, it's never been in a wind tunnel, but if you look at, you know, other factory cars, like they claim the GT500, I think makes 350 pounds of downforce at 150. This probably makes close to triple that. We move around to the front splitter. Hop on there. Go right next to one of the rods.
Over here?
Yep.
No way.
We've had 3 people on this thing. It works. It really, really works. You know, in high-speed sweepers where you're doing 100 plus miles an hour, you can really tell that the front end is a lot more stable because of the aero. I can also tell you that the car feels sluggish above 150, don't get me wrong. Above 150...
above 150, you're acting like 150 is just normal cruising speed.
It is. The fastest I've ever had this car was 172, and the car was completely stable. You know, I've got 172 in some other cars that are big horsepower, and 172 miles an hour in a lot of other cars is a little scary. But this car, because of the aero, you know, it was no problem at all. On bigger tracks like Willow Springs, it was right around 145 down the front straight. The Roval at Auto Club Speedway in SoCal, it was just over 160. Coda, I was scared to death because it was my first time on the track, and on that back straight it was like 145, 150. But the car, if I wasn't terrified, okay, I was terrified because the first.
Let's go more in the garage so the wind doesn't ruin the audio.
First group that went out, there was a Supra that hit the wall on the back straight of Coda doing 140. They had to cut the guy out of the car. It was terrifying.
Mark 5 or Mark 4?
Brand new, Mark 5.
Oh.
So that kind of, I didn't really push the car that day. Which that was actually the last time that the car drove. So, but yeah, I did about 145, 150 on the front and back straights at Coda.
Out of everything, the interior was my favorite part.
I think that's everybody's favorite part because I listed the car for sale 4 months ago. No, 7 months ago. When the car was listed for sale 7 months ago, there's been about 4 guys that were truly serious about buying it. Ultimately, the guy that bought it, he tried to buy it for me back in 2019. I don't think his wife allowed him to spend the money back then. And he had called me 2.5 months ago, and I had missed a call from him. And I called him back and I said, well, Grant, I'm guessing you saw the car's for sale again. He said, yes, I did, and this time I want to buy it. The 3 other guys and him, the biggest thing that they said about this car is how clean it is. You know, people build race cars all the time. And, of course, in racing, there's no extra points for the car being beautiful. You know, it's the 50-foot rule. If the car looks like it's fucked up from 50 feet, you're going to have to bleep that out, huh?
I don't care.
If the car looks bad from 50 feet away, it needs to be fixed. You know, the 50-foot rule. I didn't care much about having a car that was a piece of trash, that it looks like somebody hacked up to get it back together to get it to the next race. I wanted a car that was nice, clean, beautiful. That's why the entire interior is completely painted. And part of the reason why I decided not to put a full cage in the car was because it's used for time trials. Time trials, you're not required to have a full cage. And I never planned to wheel-to-wheel the car because the car is too nice. You know, if you want to go wheel-to-wheel, you buy a spec Miata that, you know, you grab a 3-pound sledgehammer in the pits in between races and you're pounding out body panels. I mean, this car is not that. It took a lot of attention to detail to keep the car pretty. I pissed a lot of people off when I sold that engine.
You did?
Yeah. There was a lot of people that saw that engine go together, and how often you hear a 13.5 to 1 compression Coyote that's turning 10,000 RPM. I mean, it's one of the probably rowdiest things that you'll ever hear. It's like a 1,000 horsepower NALS. It's like, it's rowdy.
And plus you had cams that would have just chopped the block.
11.5 to 1 compression and 13.5 to 1 compression. 13.5 is going to be way more rowdy. So a lot of people, I think, really wanted to hear it run because it's not a common combination that people, build. I think that's one major reason why it took so long to sell the engine, because it takes a special person to want to have something that is that specific.
Now, do you think in your mind, because this is what I'm thinking too, it was a one-of-one engine? Because I didn't see anyone build anything close to that.
No, and I received some criticism on some of the Facebook groups when I listed it for sale. People were saying, oh, it's sleeved, oh, it's got H-beam rods. Well, there were $1,000 H-beam rods from CP Caprillo. The reason why the engine wasn't sleeved is, well, you have sleeves for block integrity, right? For very high boost situations. For an engine that will never see boost, it's only going to see atmospheric pressure going into the engine. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to sleeve a block that's going to stay NA its whole life. There's just absolutely no reason. So I mean, and this was coming from guys that, do race drag cars, that have high horsepower built motors, that have, cars built to the same caliber or more. They just are a little bit more out of touch with the engine side of it. When you build a car, I always tell customers this, is when you build a car, first you figure out what are you going to use the car for, and then you formulate a plan of, okay, this is where I'm at now, this is where I want to be, and you put together a plan to get from the beginning to the end. A lot of people, when they build cars, they go on the forum, they go on Facebook or American Muscle or whatever, and they just look at what are the parts that have the best reviews, what are the parts that are the cheapest. I can tell you the parts that have the most reviews and the parts that are the cheapest aren't going to be the best parts out there. Aside from that, if you get, say, 50 different parts when you build an engine and you throw them all together and you don't know how each part interacts with each other, you're not going to have an engine, or you're not going to have a car, if you built the whole car, that's going to perform at the top caliber. I mean, this car was running around a track not as fast as a Porsche Cup because the Porsche Cup is just insane. But GT3, GT3RS, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, this car was on par with those very, very expensive exotics. And part of that is because when you, as a chassis builder, picking your parts, making sure all your parts are going to work together, and then after you have all your parts and the car's built, taking the time. Me personally, some chassis builders don't like doing this. I like setting cars up without aero on them. I like to set up the suspension, the dampening, to where at low speeds it's going to handle as well as at high speeds. Aero really doesn't come into play until 70 or 80 miles an hour. At a lot of tracks, there are lower speed corners that are between 40 and 60 miles an hour, to where the aero is making a couple 100 pounds of downforce between the splitter and the wing, but 200 pounds of downforce isn't going to make a total change in the handling dynamic of the car. Now, when you're in a banked oval where you're doing 160 miles an hour through a turn that's got 10 degrees of grade, that is when aero is going to really seat the car to the ground. So if you set up the suspension with aero on the car, you may have a car that performs really well on the high-speed corners, but you have a car that maybe doesn't handle so well, or you have some not ideal handling characteristics on some of the lower speed corners. So that's one thing that I do differently than some of the other chassis builders out there. But it's understanding small things like that that make a car, at the end of the day, a better car, a faster car, a more stable car. I've had this car step out on me at 140 miles an hour. Did it scare me? Absolutely not, because I know what the car is going to do. A good car that's well built, well set up, is going to be predictable when the back end comes out around on you at any speed. And let me tell you, it was a lot of fun. Most common place the car would get loose at triple digit speeds, which was my doing because I had fun getting the back end loose at 110 miles an hour, was the last turn. I think it was turn 22 or 23 at Auto Club in SoCal. Coming out of the last turn at Auto Club, you're coming onto the front straight. You have a surface change like this. You're about 5,000 RPM in third gear in this car, and you're rolling into it, coming onto that straight, and you are like hanging on for dear life, and you're rolling into the throttle, getting onto the front straight, and sometimes, on purpose or not, the back end would come around, and it was extremely fun. Extremely, extremely fun. When I was in SoCal, I think this car, to a certain extent, really upset the Porsche guys because they spend $200,000 on a GT3RS, and they have essentially it's a clean car, but a shitbox 17-year-old Mustang that someone built in their garage that they can't seem to shake in their rear view mirror. And that was always a super fun thing, was having the Porsche guys that have never come to the track with you before, which over the years people kind of started to know the car, know me, and the Porsche guys that had never seen me before, never been on the track with me before, they'd come up to me and go, "What the hell did you do to this car? Like, how is my GT3RS not able to shake a 17-year-old Mustang?" It was just always it was a fun experience. And this car was a big conversation starter with a lot of the guys with the higher end cars, because then they look at it and they go, "Wow, this is a really amazing car. It's an amazing build. What shop built it?" There was two guys that came up to me after I'd finished the swap, and they'd asked, "What shop built the car?" I said, "Me, I'm the shop." They go, "You're kidding." I go, "No, I built it at home in my garage. I work for Ford full time. I do this as a hobby." And they go, "You built this car at home in your garage. How much would it cost for you to build the same car over again?" And when I told them the price and how many hours that I had quoted to build the car over again, which was an astronomical amount of money, they said, "Well, would you sell this car?" And of course, me at the time was, "Oh no, this is the car that I built. This is my personal car. I have a lot in it. There's a lot of heart and soul invested in it. No, I don't want to sell it." I look at the dollar amount that I got for the car now, and I think to myself, man, I should have sold the car back then.
How much do you fully have invested in this car, and how much did you get back with the engine and chassis? Because you sold the engine for $13,500?
Yes.
All right.
I got $41,000, just over $41,000 out of the car. I sold the roller for $21,000. I sold the engine for $13,500, and the remainder was all the rest of the parts that I, had. Intake manifold, fuel system parts, new 4-inch brake ducts for the car that all sold separate. So yeah, I got just over $41,000. I can tell you, and I don't ever, like telling people exactly what I spent, but if you were gonna have the same car built by a shop, expect to spend in the neighborhood of $175,000 to $250,000. And that's gonna be all the body work, all the chassis setup, all the hand wiring of everything. It is a lot of labor. Labor is the largest thing when you buy a car like this from a shop, when you have a shop build it for you, is you figure to just do the powertrain work, you're probably looking at 100 hours of labor to rebuild the engine, rebuild the trans, rebuild the rear end, R&I. For the chassis work, it's not quite as much. You're probably going to spend somewhere in the neighborhood to fully put the suspension on the car, about 20-25 hours worth of labor time. And then you have all the custom pieces, fully ducting in the radiator. One fun test that I used to always do with people, which if I have one right now.
Wow.
The ducting fully encapsulates the coolers, and it will suck air in and draw it in. So that's a demo that I would do for people, and they say, "Well, man, why so many hours? Why so much money? Is it really worth it?" On the car that just left, which was a 2019 Mustang GT built for Optimal Ultimate Street Car, that car, I fully ducted in the coolers. I actually still have the templates for it. So these I made for templating before I made the final materials. Like this was one side, I think that was the bottom. This was the other side, and then I used the Mishimoto piece that came with the oil cooler for the top. But when I drove the car home from work, I did the engine work at my dealership because they had a lift. It was much easier to do. That car, when I drove it home, it didn't have grill shutters in it. It had, the grill shutters were taken out because I didn't put the AC back in the car. So essentially, the radiator had nothing ducting it in. It was just air could flow around the radiator. The car was damn near overheating, driving it from my dealership back home. It got really, not overheating, but it ran very hot. After the car was finished, I could do a first through top of fourth gear pull, and the car stayed at 180 degrees. It didn't change. All in all, I probably saw a 60-degree drop in temperatures between a fully ducted radiator and a radiator with no ducting. So it very much works. There's a lot of labor time in doing that. The splitter for these cars are all custom. There's nobody that truly makes a good chassis mount kit where you can put 500, 600, 700 pounds on the nose of the car and have it live. And then there's fabrication of pieces like this custom oil catch can, which I was fortunate to buy used, but of course, stuff like this takes a lot of time to make. It goes all the way down. It holds about 2 quarts. But there's just generally a lot of work. Plus your all of your time to completely strip the interior, paint the interior. I think the sound deadener took me in the neighborhood of, I don't know, 15 to 20 hours to strip the sound deadener out. I've learned since quicker ways of stripping sound deadener, but oh my god, it felt endless. Quality is up there with big name shops. You know, if you look through my Instagram, White Knight SGT, which I'm sure will be down in the description section, you can see the quality of work that I turn out is very, very high. And it's not just my own car, it's all my customer cars. I work for Ford. I'm a mechanic. You know, I'm on mechanic salary. So a big portion of the reason why I was able to build a car of this caliber is, one, how many hours I work, physically work, and the fact that I didn't have to pay a shop for all the labor to do all of this. You know, is things that I learned along the way, how to do it myself. Metal fabrication, welding, plastic fabrication, wiring, engine building. You know, Ford teaches us how to replace short blocks, how to replace cylinder heads, how to replace internal engine parts. But it is very, very seldom that we actually do ground up from a bare block rebuild something. So years ago, I had to learn how do you build an engine for the first time. So there is a lot of costs that I did not incur because I did it all myself. All I can say for the people out there, especially the younger generation of people that, you know, they work, you know, part-time jobs, they're in high school, don't give up. You know, keep going, keep learning, you know, just quench your thirst for knowledge. You know, if you don't know how to do something on your car, obviously there's certain things like wiring up fuel pumps or wiring, you know, things that need to be done correctly. But very small things like changing out shocks, changing your intake manifold if you decide to get an aftermarket intake manifold, whether it's LS, Hemi, Coyote, 3-valve, anything. Learn how to do it yourself. But the bigger things, you know, leave to the professionals. Learn people that know how to do it. But just keep going. Never look at something and be intimidated and say, well, I can't learn that. You can. You know, I had absolutely zero knowledge. I did 1.5 years of a automotive certificate program where I didn't even graduate. I didn't get my AA. I didn't even get the certificate. I took what I needed to know for my career path in a dealership, and that was it. Everything else, all the custom stuff, all self-taught. There are guys along the way that have taught me a lot. Paul Patberg, my soon-to-be father-in-law, David Reagan, Alex Como.